Hello everyone, welcome to Nareen's Life with MS. This is Nareen and it's time for a Truthful Tuesday. And before I get started, please excuse the hair. I do need to get it cut. It's just, that's just the shape it decided to take today. But with that said, of course, there are so many truths about, living with MS that, kind of exist, and everyone's truth with MS is slightly different. And it was funny because I am on a small group text with a bunch of other MS patients, and there was someone shared a video today, and in it there were other MS patients, and some of them were, running, swimming, basically doing um, high intensity activities. And, I just wanted to share a truth about high intensity activities once you have MS. So, for starters, I mean, I have conducted high intensity activities. I mean, um, they do happen from time to time. It's just, my definition of intensity would, or at least high intensity, would vary um, very differently from someone else who probably does not have MS, or at least even someone who might have MS but have but be showcasing completely different symptoms. And the reason is because there is a certain level, there's a certain threshold of energy that you do have, right? A lot of I think I've discussed in the past that people use different sort of ways to measure their energy, but intensity ends up being something that uh, does increase the amount of energy that you consume while doing a certain activity. So usually something that does end up happening is, for example, uh, say I'm on, let's say, a stationary bike, and I'm walking on that. I'm using that stationary bike for 10 to 15 minutes. Now, the thing about a stationary bike is that I have the ability to, vary my speed depending on how much energy I have. I can um, vary the amount of energy I'm putting into each kick that I'm doing with either leg. And so that's what is making, me use the bicycle for that much time. Now compare that with something that involves continuous motion for the same amount of time, like a treadmill. Now, a treadmill will be very different because, you know, because I will have to not only engage in moving at the same speed, but I will have to exert the same amount of energy, regardless of which leg is going up front, regardless of, how fast or how slow I'm going, because it's continuous. And that I think that was the first thing that kind of, you, you know, literally fell out of the window when, I was experiencing MS symptoms, which is that, you know, um, if you wish that your body was symmetrical, that is the first thing that you will notice does not happen. And MS is definitely a place where that idea, that ideal of symmetry just ceases to exist a little bit more. And the the easiest answer for that is, I can be on a stationary bike. I can bike for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, even half an hour, and I lose a certain amount of calories, let's say 50 calories. Now if you ask me to do the same like the same amount of exercise, the same time on, say, a treadmill, that is going to be, well, first of all, I don't think I can probably walk for 30 minutes um, at a current speed. Or even if it is a current speed, it will probably be a speed lower than the lowest speed. And I think the lowest speed that usually happens on a treadmill is maybe zero point 0.8 kilometers an hour or 1 kilometer an hour. I'd definitely be walking a lot slower than that, just because I would realize that however much energy I'm putting into moving my right leg, I have to put the same amount of energy in my left leg. And of course, you always have to meter it to the weakest link, right? Once that link breaks, once that link does not perform, and that is where that you have to kind of stop. And so usually the one thing that I do end up doing when I go to the gym, and it's funny that I'm heading to the gym tomorrow, that and when I do have the opportunity uh, to warm up, I sometimes do have the choice of choosing either the stationary bike or the treadmill. And the treadmill always ends up being the harder decision to make, because I will definitely be a lot more tired after using the treadmill, and I will have lost sometimes single digits, right? Single digits for moving, I want to say, for 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes. Whereas you put me on a bike, and sometimes I've spent almost half of half of my time at the gym on the bike, just because there was nothing else to do, right? So this is something that I did want to share as a Truthful Tuesday episode. I know I've mentioned the whole idea about symmetry, about the fact that energy, you do have to partition your energy so that you you know do make um, you do make the right decisions. But of course, the one thing you do have to realize is that a lot of times what happens with MS is that um, whatever you thought of the idea of symmetry uh, might not really exist, or might actually cease to exist, just because there will come a time where one side of your body will be weaker. And when I say by weaker, I mean significant difference in you know what can happen with your right versus what can happen with your left. And yes, I've talked about this before, but I did want to reiterate that you know regardless of how what happens, or regardless of how asymmetrical your body becomes, it is still, in one way, shape, or form, it is your body. And honestly, it if it can still do a lot of things that you want to do on a daily basis, you know you should consider that a win. And the funniest thing is, if you're looking at my face, you can actually notice that you know even my hairstyle isn't symmetrical. Right? Even my hair has its own sort of asymmetry happening. So with that being said, I do hope that this does help you understand sometimes why some people, when they when they get this idea of, or someone tells them that, I've seen you, you know exercise, I've seen you do a lot of things, why don't you do other exercises? It might just be because of the fact that they're maybe not as symmetrical. And as I like to say it, like, once I did get MS, and obviously went through the crests and the troughs of um, having relapses, not having relapses, improving in health, deteriorating in health. One thing that became very common was when I would run or be as close to running as possible, my legs moved at different speeds. So it almost felt like I was galloping like a horse, even though um, it was more kind of like watching someone with legs that are two different lengths, trying to run, essentially. So that is one thing that I did want to share, right, about the fact that there is an asymmetry that already exists in your body, and it exists in all of us, and as a result of that asymmetry, MS just somehow just makes it just a little bit more pronounced. And by when I say a little bit more pronounced, I mean that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? And slowly over time, you'll end up realizing how much further that asymmetry can go. So with that said, I do hope that your week started off very strong. I do hope that you did end up that you did have a great Tuesday. And with that said, this is Nareen's Life with MS. My name is Nareen, and I do hope that you are going through this week very, very strong, because very soon, I mean, even tomorrow for that matter, we are going to be hitting the middle of the week. And after that, you know what I always say. But that said, I do want to wish you a good night. I do want to wish you sweet dreams. And of course, before I end this video, do share your thoughts, do share your experiences, do share your comments, do share your feedback, and of course, do share your insights so that we can get the conversation started. And with that being said, again, I'll reiterate, good night, sweet dreams, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.